Yo, what's up everyone? Welcome to another episode. Tonight I'll be talking about warm-ups and whether or not or kind of question for yourselves is are you really doing an effective warm-up before your training, before practice, before sport, or whatever it may be. Now, I'm going to kind of go through, later on I'll go through what's a good warm-up, and I'm going to go through some common faults that I do see when it comes to what I believe and what some of the research is starting to say now, and what's not effective, if not more detrimental, in terms of appropriately warming up before a training session or practice or for a sport or whatever, or going for a run, whatever it may be. First of all, static stretching. This is probably the most common one that I see, and a lot of trainers would see, and a lot of S&C guys would say there's more detrimental than anything else. It's kind of defined static stretching is holding stretches for longer than 20 seconds without any, I guess, just holding the position for 20 seconds, where it's considered more dynamic, which is actually holding a stretch for no more than 3 seconds. Example, a static stretch is basically reaching for your toes, simple hamstring stretch, pec stretch through the doorway, something like that, where you hold it for a certain duration. This is actually more of a hindrance than anything else, and usually more effective ways is actually again increasing muscle temperature through doing some dynamic movements. So you might do something as simple as arm circles, some bear crawls. You do some sort of yoga push-ups, depending on your ability, or doing some light band work, some light flies, chest flies at different angles, some simple cable work, even using light weights, just moving through a full range of motion, but in a controlled fashion. It's totally cool. That's probably the first one. Number two, now because it's winter in Australia, especially, well, some people would consider it winter weather, especially in Victoria, New South Wales, where the temperature's getting below double digits, and people aren't wearing appropriate clothing when they come into the gym. And I find it's just such a simple concept. It's like, if you're cold, if your house is cold in the morning, and you're planning on having a shower later on, put some clothes on, get some layers on, at least warm up the skin temperature so you feel warm, you actually feel good in the car, and you keep those layers on until you start, and your heart rate starts to increase, well, not increase, but muscle temperature starts to increase, joint range of motion starts to increase, and you start to actually feel better, and start to actually feel warm, and start to develop somewhat of a sweat. And this is a really good thing to do if you don't want to prolong your warm-ups too much. Is actually to wear layers and actually start to strip the layers off as you start to get warmer and warmer and further and further into your workout. I don't know how many people walk into the gym with singlet and shorts and complain about the cold. I'm like, well, put some bloody clothes on. That's number two. Is the layers. Number three is cardio. Now, I'm not bashing cardio. I think cardio has its place. The issue is when they use cardio as only as their warm up. So they do 10 minutes of some cross trainer, treadmill, walking, running, something just to build up increase in muscle temperature. Therefore, it's going to help increase joint range of motion. And just kind of allow circulation of the blood, so on and so forth. Now, I don't mind this at the beginning as long as it's followed by some sort of specific warm up. So doing cardio, I would consider more of a general warm up. Doing walking lunges, walking RDLs, Cossack lunge, lateral lunge, yoga push-up, bear crawls. Those are more dynamic movements which are essentially using your whole body. You will start to increase, warm up and increase in temperature, muscle temperature. therefore joint range of motion. And these movements are somewhat specific to what you're more likely to perform within your workout. So it becomes a bit more specific. So you can do your cardio before, but I suggest doing more specific warm-up exercises, just body weight or some light banded work or some sort of breathing drills or some sort of dynamic stretching. That was number 3. Number 4, and this is a bit contentious. Number 4, I would actually consider leg swings. Now, I know people potentially might get a little bit pissy with this one, but I think leg swings, when you see a lot of professional athletes do this, they're just kind of allowing their legs to kind of swing through and really just throwing their foot, right? Now, I don't know how, I first learned this when I was over in the US. The coach was really questioning it. I was like, how does that even apply to what you're doing? It really does. Just kind of flopping your foot back and forth, just kind of like blowing through the structures in the hip. You're not really doing anything. The glute isn't really working. You're just kind of, you're just going into lordosis, anterior pelvic tilt. There's no actual stability with the movement. There's no stability from the foot that's on the ground or from the leg that's on the ground. And there's no actual stability and control through the movement. So it doesn't really mimic running as such. It does, the only thing I can really say, it mimics kicking in AFL, soccer to a lesser degree, but I would contend there are better ways of doing that. Doing more of a running action. So you've got a partner, the foot that's on the ground, the leg that's on the ground remains stable. Basically, and the leg that's swinging through, drive up with the high knee and you drive that foot back into the ground and away from the body. So it's basically drive up, drive down, drive up, drive down. I think this is more effective. I think that can be potentially dangerous long term, and just doesn't. There's no hip stability. You're not activating any stabilizers. It just looks a bit more haphazard, and the way people do it, it just looks really lackluster as well. I think this is a big area. I think it's a little contentious, but hey, I'm just giving my opinions at the end of the day. Number 5, foam rolling. People, or gym goers, members, foam rolling, I feel it's good, but I think it could, like anything, it can be butchered as well. I think when you foam roll, you need to be foam rolling with a purpose. You need to focus on it, and you can't really be using your phone when you're foam rolling because you don't really know what you're doing. You can't really feel what's actually going on, whether you actually get any benefit out of it. Foam rolling's good. Helps to increase blood flow and circulation, help break down some scar tissue, increase joint range of motion, yada yada yada. Can improve DOMS, any muscular soreness from previous sessions, just promoting some blood flow and oxygen to the area. When foam rolling, I believe you should be doing it really specific. You can do it like 5 to 7 minutes, and make sure you're hitting certain areas and moving on to the next spot as you start to feel some sort of change. I always say do one side at a time, especially if you're doing legs. Don't do both sides because you can't really target any specific areas that potentially do feel stiff or painful or whatever it may be. You're not really understanding what your body's really going through when you're actually doing both legs at the same time. It just looks a bit haphazard than anything else, with no real purpose or intent. Like, they know it's good, but are they getting the desired outcome? Who knows? If they are, great, keep doing it. If they're not, they need to question what they're doing. That's number 5. So with warm-ups, kind of like bringing it a little bit full circle, some simple things to do. For me, sometimes I like to foam roll. Sometimes I like to go into a dynamic warm-up. So doing some sort of like lateral lunges, Cossack lunges. I do a lot of breathing as well. So if you followed my content before, or people who've trained with me in the past, I'm a big proponent of breathing. Get diaphragmatic breathing first, then everything else will be able to follow. So be able to activate your core, and then everything will be able to move nicely. Doing that first. So foam roll, diaphragmatic breathing. Then go into more dynamic warm up. So lunge. So you could do like walking lunges, lateral lunges. You could do some sort of specific running work or running technique work. Been implementing a little bit of this, just get my heart rate up, get a little bit of that stretch shortening cycle as well in the Achilles. It's because of strength. Basically, just try and strengthen out my ankles. Then you can go into more specific. So at the moment, doing more Olympic work, Olympic weightlifting work. So I end up spending 5 to 8 minutes doing some simple barbell complexes. It could be anything from RDLs to low pulls, high pulls, overhead squats, push press, overhead pressing. Just to actually move more specific into what I'm doing. And whilst adding towards what's actually happened. So I've increased blood flow to the area with the foam rolling, increasing more blood flow with the dynamic warm up, but also focus on core activation and with the diaphragmatic breathing, which helps the whole system. With the dynamic warm up, I might even do some glute work, some crab walks with a band around my knees, or some monster walks, or some squats with a band around my knees, just to get my glutes firing a little bit more. Then I'll move into more the specific warm up in terms of all the barbell work. Now that's a bit of a crash course in some of the do's and don'ts, or some of the common faults, and some simple ways to actually structure a workout. It all depends on what you're doing for what you got planned for the day. I would say go general, warm up the whole body, then go a bit more specific to what you're doing. So if you're focusing on bench pressing, still do some lower body work in terms of activation, warm up, range of motion. You might be stiff from another day, so that can potentially help with that as well. So there's different ways you can craft a workout. It could be potentially to feed forward into what you're doing next, or it could be potentially to do some work of what you did the day before or 2 days prior that you are starting to feel a little bit stiff, and you implement that into your warm up if you are going to be doing something a little bit different as well. Those are my thoughts. Lift well. See you guys next week. Peace.